Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and a lot of changes have been rolling out consistently throughout 10.2. I just went in and did a solo queue battleground test and really got to feel out how powerful and how fun these specializations are starting to look right now, and I wanted to give you some of my thoughts that are formulating so far as to what is looking strong, what's going to perform in all aspects of PvP for 10.2, so you can start building an idea of what is going to be a good fit and a good pick for yourself. If you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So the first ranged DPS specialization we're going to be talking about is the Affliction warlock. Now, this is an insane specialization when it comes to battlegrounds. It's going to be the pinnacle specialization. It's going to be the best by far. So if you really want to hyper focus down on battlegrounds and the solo shuffle battlegrounds, Affliction is going to be your go-to. I think that it's likely not going to be as strong in 3v3, but it's still probably going to be pretty decent. I see it picking up some pace even now in 10.1.7. So I'm somewhere hovering it between A and S. For battlegrounds, I would put it in S. For arenas, it may be an A+. So right now we'll just leave it in an S. I feel like that's the most exciting bracket for it. Is battlegrounds. It just overall is feeling really good. I think that in solo shuffle, if you can survive long enough, you might get some rough lobbies, but they are buffing up its armor. It's feeling a little bit more durable than it had previously, so it's definitely better. So maybe S tier is a fair assessment for it currently. Arcane mage, this is just, I had absolutely no fun on it. This was the worst experience I ever had on a class or spec in these battles. It's not true. I ranked Outlaw Rogue way too high on my melee DPS tier list. Outlaw Rogue is the worst spec in the game. They removed Find Weakness for some reason, which has completely removed half of the build viabilities. You pretty much have to play Crack Shot Between the Eyes build. The Ambush build, which looked like it was going to be a lot of fun, is totally neutered now that we don't have Find Weakness. We have no armor penetration. I don't know why they removed that. Outlaw Rogue was the worst experience. Bottom damage, 0 burst. That was the worst class. Arcane Mage was probably the Outlaw Rogue equivalent, though, of ranged DPS. One school of magic meant that I was interrupted, stunned, and really angry the entire time because you're one of the few casters that has to cast a lot. Affliction can get away with using some instant cast to keep its dots going and get into different positions, but Arcane was tickling people. The battleground tuning, they're going to need to add some healing reduction to this battleground, whether it's like 20 or 30% overall healing reduction debuff, because they've tuned the game around 3v3 and 2v2, which sometimes has 10% baseline healing reduction and upwards of that fact, and a lot of matches aren't ending until it's maybe 40% overall healing reduction, and you could really feel that in the battleground testing. It was probably my main complaint, is that healing is just way too powerful. So as an arcane mage, you're just like shooting missiles in and no one's HP is moving and you got like no control of the game. You can't get any pressure. Polymorph is really useless, especially in team fights. People just dotting it, cleaving it, breaking it. It's really not strong in that sense. I had absolutely no fun. It was completely miserable, even given despite the set bonuses. Now in arena, maybe it's slightly better, maybe it's like a C tier, but my first response to it was like, and I just got 2400 on it in the solo shuffle challenge recently, like just a few weeks ago, and no, it was just not a good time. Balanced Druid, this guy is still going to be sitting up at an S tier. It's going to be really flexible and versatile, good damage profile. I love the build diversity that it's got. It's just keeping really what it's got in the current patch moving forward, which is still a phenomenal position and a great pick. For Beast Mastery Hunter, I was really surprised at how strong this specialization was. It does a huge amount of damage. The set bonuses, calling in tons of Dire Beasts, and those Dire Beasts accessing kill command, I was topping the meter, keeping up with Affliction warlocks. Now with the removal of the dot removal on Feign Death, with how prevalent these dot classes are probably going to be, it might be falling a little bit off. I want to say it's probably like an A tier. I think its crowd control is also not very helpful. Freezing Trap and Polymorph are just not very useful at all. You can run Diamond Ice Trap, which honestly you probably should, to trap healers in these battleground situations, but Freezing Trap does not feel impactful in the battleground scenarios, but its damage is definitely hard carrying its ranking at the moment, so that is subject to change. So make sure you're subscribed so we can see if those changes come through or not, but damage is definitely carrying it. Warlock specializations, another kind of sleeper ability, was the Observer PvP talent, just being able to send that up in a team fight and people seemingly ignoring it, and it just disco balling the entire team and doing insane amounts of damage. Demonology, it felt good. My experience is against Demonology. I didn't play Demonology. I played against it. It was on Arcane, so I don't know, again, if it's biased. Now, the melee DPS that were absolutely stellar were things like Fury Warrior and Demon Hunter, which typically Demo Lock is not too good into. So I want to say it's probably like somewhere between an A or a B, a low A or a high B at the moment. Brings mortal wounds, which is nice. You're able to call a bunch of demons into the fight, coil, stun a healer, and kill them, which is going to be nice. That type of crowd control is going to be useful. But I think it's going to be a little bit short in terms of overall damage that Affliction can pump out currently with how it is. Destruction Warlock, this guy is an S tier specialization. They've just buffed every single spell that it has. It's Conflags, Shadow Burns, Chaos Bolts, Instant Incinerates. It's proccing Dimensional Rifts from its Immolate Ticks, and it's just pumping out the most disgusting amount of damage I've ever seen. I'm about to upload a YouTube short of what a Destro Lock did to me on my poor Outlaw Rogue, which honestly, guys, like Outlaw Rogue, I don't know why they removed Find Weakness. They have to find a way to bring Find Weakness back onto the kit for Outlaw Rogue, or it's got no chance. It's got no chance at all. But Destruction Warlock, absolutely stellar specialization. Super fun, really well-rounded, going to be really strong in all scenarios, really. Devastation Evoker, another surprisingly good specialization. I think in battleground situations, you're going to be able to carry with this spec, mostly because of Scouring Flame PvP talent, which makes Fire Breath Purge off Host depending on its charge. So deep breathing into a team, turning around, tip the scales, fire breathing, and stripping every hot and buff off of them is like one of the best mechanics that I've seen for battlegrounds when I was testing it. And Disintegrate, with the buffs that it just received, was actually able to move healers' health bars. And the classes that are S tier are basically the specs that have either the ability to CC a healer effectively, or do enough damage to actually out damage their healing, which is something remarkable because the healing is actually so dramatically high. I want to probably say it's probably A tier instead of S. Survival, I don't know, man. It felt really good. But I feel like I'm putting way too many specs on S at that point. But it felt really good. That's best I could tell you is that this thing felt amazing. It was super fun. I just hit 2400 on my recent solo shuffle challenge, most recent one, I think, and it felt really fun. Just I could see in all content it being really fun with the way that it's tuned currently at the moment. Ellie Shaman, guys, I can't believe I'm doing this again. I'm putting this guy up on S tier. The new set bonuses where Primordial Wave is going to shoot out an Ellie Blast. You can have like 3 stacks of the Ellie Blast buff and just have an insane stat profile. And when you have enough haste, you're just keeping flame shocks on everything and just proccing lava bursts, that just machine gunning even more lava bursts. And yeah, it's basically just they're doubling down on everything that feels good about Ellie in the current patch, with how strong it is, into the next patch, and it's going to be the same case here. Again, utility like grounding, super effective in battleground situation as well. It's just like a 3-second ice block against all casters if you can put it in good positions. So it's got really good utility and really good damage profile for that, and I think it's going to be good in pretty much all other PvP content as well. I was even winning some 1v1s against things like Fury Warriors and Demon Hunters, so it was feeling pretty good from my initial testing. Fire Mage, it's felt pretty average. Honestly, the mage specs all around felt pretty average. I didn't play Frost, but I saw a couple Frost mages. Fire Mage felt better than Arcane, mostly because you got instant cast damage, so you're less frustrated by the amount of CCs and interrupts that are going to be coming into you in battleground situations. And again, with Rogue Mage, Fire Mage is going to feel insane, I'm sure. But as like a standalone spec, if you're just playing by yourself, I don't think it's going to be that great. Now, I could see Rogue Mage obviously being one of the best comps in the game. So if you're a 3v3 player and you're playing Fire Mage Subtlety Rogue, yeah, you're going to dominate. But if you're just going into the spec with Solo Shuffle in mind, LF Gene in mind, and stuff like that, where you can't necessarily form the best comp and have the best synergy, it's going to feel pretty average, kind of tickling healers, sitting on the back line. Polymorph, again, not too effective. Mostly the instant cast damage from Combustion to be able to try and push through the amount of healing was where I noticed it the most. But oftentimes I was hitting stalemates in team fights where I didn't feel like I could really do a lot. So it felt pretty mid, although its damage was moderately high in the battlegrounds comparatively to Arcane, where my damage was much lower. It's much harder to get anything going with that. Frost Mage, again, it's probably pretty mid. I think the snares are going to make it a bit more effective than Fire or Arcane. So being able to control enemies and keep them condensed together and keep them snared, and spamming Ice Lances and resetting your Frozen Orbs and spamming Ice Lance is probably going to be the way to go. But your set bonuses don't play into that with the Glacial Spike set bonuses. It's probably going to feel pretty mid from my personal experiences with it, at least in the battleground scenario. Now Arena, maybe with a Mage Lock, but even then, I don't know, because Hunters are so good now. Like BM is so insane, and MM is still good, and Survival is good. And Ellie is good. Like all these specs that I feel like Mage is going to end up feeling pretty mid with the current tuning. MM Hunter, I'm slapping this one up onto S tier, although maybe it should be on A. It's just doing the same amount of nasty burst that it does in the current patch and this patch, and with how many clothies there are, yeah, you're gonna be pumping a lot of pressure out in that regard. Maybe it's A tier. Nah, I think S tier is probably a fair point to put it here. I think overall for 10.2, it's just the same thing as it is right now, which is absolutely crazy powerful. Shadow Priest, this is kind of a low-key one. I didn't see a lot of it, honestly. It's going to bring good pressure just with dot damage. It's still really tanky and still really durable, obviously. I could see it potentially being frustrating with lots of melee training you down. Once you know how to play it, though, I think it's going to be in a great spot. I don't know how it's burst. I didn't see any Shadow Priest doing like a huge, like, oh my god, this is so much burst damage. Honestly, I wish that I tried this one directly. That I'm going to hold back my reservations on it overall. Put it onto the A tier right now because I think it is still really well rounded. It's got a good overall damage profile. It's still really versatile, flexible with a lot of specs. Good in pretty much all the brackets. I think it's likely still going to be pretty good. Just expecting more of the same really from Shadow Priest in the current patch moving forward for it. It could easily probably be S tier. Augmentation Evoker, I'm not expecting this spec to go anywhere. Being able to buff your group, it's probably the best spec in the game. I should maybe have even had a god tier for Augmentation Evoker, like being able to buff your entire group for a battleground or even just in arenas. It's just disgusting. The spec is just disgusting. It brings so much value. Its one shots are really high. The kind of sleeper abilities are the spacing out on the shield you put on people that reflects like thorns, basically. I don't know why my brain is not allowing me to remember that. If somebody remembers it, let me know in the comments down below. But you have this cooldown that you can put on players. It puts an absorb and it reflects damage to melee attackers. This hard counters melee DPS. It's going to feel really strong, really powerful, obviously, in battleground situations. Being able to buff up your whole group like that and bring one-shots and bring support and hybrids, and Sleepwalk is better than Sheep in a lot of cases. Augmentation is going to be absolutely gnarly, and that's pretty much it for the range DPS. You can see there's a lot of them that are doing really stellar, like pretty above average. Mages just seem to be the ones I think that are struggling at this point, and it's likely just because polymorph, at least in a battleground situation, is just not helpful. It's just going to get dotted and cleaved and broke, and their damage is not going to be as comparable to these, and healing is so high that if you don't sheep a healer and it doesn't sit, then there's no way to move anyone's health bar, it seems like. So I think it's going to be pretty rough in that regard. But a lot of the other ones, just pretty much not mage, would be my initial assessment here for 10.2 at the halfway point. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed my assessment. Hope it's got you thinking about what the specializations are going to bring to the table for you to select for the next patch, so you're not making the wrong decision. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.